Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. Welcome back to another great stream. I'm Joe Poreka and welcome to the channel. And as always, it's Wednesday, so we're talking about real estate. And tonight, of course, we are talking about pretty much what is the trending topic, the devastation and the insane wildfires in Los Angeles and how that's going to affect people and how it's going to affect people all across the nation, not just the people in Los Angeles, but elsewhere as well. And it's going to affect people mainly through insurance. But we're going to talk about some of the effects the LA wildfires are going to have on the local region and also on the greater United States real estate market, insurance market, and how all that's going to shake out. For those of you that might not be familiar, I'm Joe. I live in LA County. Luckily, thankfully, I am not directly affected by the fires that are happening in the central and western portion of LA County. And I'm going to pull up a map really shortly. I'm going to show you where I am. I'm going to show you where the fires are in relation to me. I'm going to show you why the fires are such a problem. And I'm going to show you how it affected those neighborhoods. Plus, we have a couple of articles as well to go over, basically talking about how these fire events are going to, affect other people. So we have a lot to cover. I will say right off the bat, I'm a little bit frazzled. It's been a very, very long week for us Angelinos. Again, even though I wasn't directly affected by the fire, friends and family have directly been affected by the fire. So a lot of the energy and the attention this week has gone into helping those people. I have not read the articles. I was late to the stream. So if I could just ask for an ounce of your forgiveness. As you can probably understand, for most people in the Los Angeles area, our focus is it's elsewhere right now. So I appreciate you guys for kind of putting up with some of my discombobulation on this evening's stream. Hey, Cackleberry, thank you so much for those well wishes. We're doing okay. Physically we're okay. Mentally we're doing all right. I hope you're doing okay as well up there on the hill. I know that we've got some red flag warnings. Hopefully, your home is not in any danger, and hopefully no fires sprout up in your area, because I know that you're up there in the mountains. So, but thank you. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for checking in on me. I really appreciate that, Cackleberry. And as always, as you guys know, if at any time you guys have any comments, tonight's stream is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be pretty low key. We're going to go over the articles, but we're kind of just going to talk about the fires and the effect that's going to have. So if at any time you guys just have thoughts about what's going on, concerns about what's going on, thoughts about the article, put it into the comments, put it into the chat. I would love to know what you guys are thinking, how you guys are feeling. Again, I'm not going to claim to be one of these people that has been affected by the fires, but I'm only about 20 miles away. So I've got some decent firsthand experience and knowledge. For those people that maybe aren't familiar with the area or are not in California, if you guys have questions and you want to ask someone who's an Angelino directly, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you guys might have. So if you're new to the stream, pop a comment in. I'd love to know where you're watching from. And if you wouldn't mind, hit the thumbs up. Please like the stream. It helps me out. It helps the stream out. And if you haven't subscribed, I'd really appreciate you consider subscribing to the channel. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You're not going to get emails. You're not going to get phone calls. It just helps my channel grow a little bit. So without any further ado, I think the best first thing to do is I want to go over an email that I received from actually my local Chamber of Commerce. And it's just kind of a really good update email. They put together a really good update email with some good resources. So I kind of want to go over that really quick, because I think this could be helpful for some of the people that are maybe trying to understand the situation. Plus, some of these points talk about sort of the rebuild, insurance, and things like that. So I'm going to get this up on the screen. See, I'm all over the place tonight. All right. So this is where we're at. I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger for you guys. The sidebar just gets so dang big. Hopefully y'all can see that okay. So this is from the Claremont Chamber of Commerce, my local Chamber of Commerce that I'm a part of. And they just put out this really good update email that I thought might be helpful for other people. And then after this, we'll get into more of the real estate and insurance side of things. So Just a couple updates here. So Mayor Bass issued a sweeping executive order that will coordinate debris removal from all impacted areas, mitigates for wet weather, streamline debris removal from all impacted areas by consolidating processes and mitigating risk from future potential rainstorms, uniting with the California Office of Emergency Services and other city, county, and state and federal agencies. This is a really important one because one of the biggest concerns now that there's still fires burning. So they're not out yet. So we still have very real threats, but obviously a lot of people are already looking to, okay, well, how are we going to rebuild? When are we going to rebuild? What's that process going to look like? And what a lot of people don't realize is that although we're calling this a wildfire, it's not a traditional wildfire by kind of the LA meaning of the word. So when we talk about wildfire, we're usually talking about a forest fire or a brush fire. And what a lot of people don't realize is that in Los Angeles and in the surrounding, Southern California hillsides and communities, wildfires not rare, right? They're semi-routine, usually on a yearly basis. It's just kind of how it goes. But what is rare is to have any wildfire that breaks out and then have it destroy structures. So it's very rare for us to have a wildfire, brush fire, forest fire, and have it destroy any structures. That's rare. It's happened before. It will happen again. But when structures are lost, it's 10, 15, maybe 20. And usually it's not residences. Usually it's like different outbuildings and garages or barns or things. And that's because firefighters typically have the resources to protect homes, right? This fire is completely different. And this fire was much more like a firestorm. And you guys have probably seen the videos online of, embers just flying through the air at, 50, 60 miles an hour. And when you have so much fuel in the form of brush and open space, and you combine that with 60, 70, 80 mile an hour winds, there's nothing, no amount of firefighting resources is going to stop that firestorm. And unfortunately, that firestorm blew right into Altadena and through Pacific Palisades, 2 separate firestorms, 2 separate fires. So it's very rare that we lose this many structures. This is unprecedented loss. And one of the important things about rebuilding, because of all of the structures that burned, there's a lot of really harsh chemicals, building materials that have now burned that are not meant to burn. A lot of these homes were vintage homes, especially in Altadena, where that means there's lead, there's asbestos, there's all sorts of other heavy chemicals that are not good. And now they're just sitting on the soil, right? So that's a problem. We can't rebuild things until that's cleaned up. So the fact that Mayor Bass enacted an executive order that's going to streamline the cleanup services, that's a good thing. Hopefully they clean up properly, though. Hopefully they don't just, oh yeah, it's clean, rebuild, and then we have other environmental issues down the line. Hey, Michelle, does Mayor Bass's statements about cleaning apply to Altadena, Pasadena, or just the Palisades fire, which I believe is her jurisdiction? So yeah, that's correct. So she's the mayor of Los Angeles. Altadena, I believe, well, I don't know. Pasadena, I know, has its own mayor, so that's its own incorporated city. Altadena, I'm not sure about. I don't know if this executive order will have an effect on the Altadena area. Because Mayor Bass is just the mayor of Los Angeles, she's not, she doesn't have any county powers or anything like that. So I'm not sure. It really probably would come down to whether or not Altadena is its own incorporated city. Maybe if it's unincorporated portion of LA, perhaps this executive order could apply to that. But I'm not sure. But that's a great question. Cackleberry. I don't see how they're going to recover from this anytime soon, if ever. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I think that they will recover. I think there will be a rebuild. And I'll tell you why. I think it's just because that those areas, Southern California just has such a need for housing and such a need for property that I think that those who choose to not rebuild will be replaced by people that do want to rebuild. Now, the caveat to that is insurance, right? Because if you can't get insurance, you can build a house, but most people aren't going to want to put in the $1 million or more dollars that it takes to build a house from scratch in this area and then not have it insured so that, something like this could possibly happen again. So I will say this. I think that there's a really good chance that there will be some type of recovery. I think it will happen, but I have no idea in what capacity, and I don't know on what timeline. It's going to be a very, very long time until there's any resemblance of quote unquote normalcy in the areas that are affected, both the Pacific Palisades and in Altadena. All right, so let's move on here. Get the screen right. There we go. Clear the way to rebuild homes as they were, establishes a one-stop shop to swiftly issue permits in all impacted areas, directs city departments to expedite all building permit review inspections, bypasses state CEQA discretionary review, allows rebuilding like for like, and waives city discretionary review process. So all of this whole bullet point is to basically streamline the rebuilding process. So they're basically going to say, hey, listen, we're going to make the permitting process faster. CEQA, these 4 letters here, my cursor works. CEQA is a big freaking deal. This is the California Environmental something Act. I forget, Qualifications Act or something. Basically, this is a CEQA report is a report that has to be put together that demonstrates to the local government that this building isn't going to negatively impact the environment. Now, when I say negatively impact the environment, I'm not talking about, by building a building here, you're going to, build on top of a habitat for gophers or something. No, it means environment in the greatest sense of the term. So like, will this increase traffic around the area? Will it increase any type of pollution, in any way? Thank you, California Environmental Quality Act. Thank you, Cackleberry, coming through. Like I said, my mind is going 1,000 different ways in 1,000 different miles an hour. So I appreciate the help from Cackleberry on that one to fill in the blank. Appreciate you. And that's a big one because CEQA is a very long process and it's a very big process. It's a costly process and it has to be done anytime a new property is built. And the fact that they're going to say we're going to bypass that, that's a big deal. That's going to be very, very helpful. That's a good thing. Taking immediate action to make 1,400 units of housing available, directs the Department of Building and Safety to expedite approvals known as temporary certificates of occupancy for 1,400 units of housing currently in the pipeline across the city. So what this says is basically they're saying, okay, that the properties that we do have approved and in the pipeline, we are going to speed that up. So if they haven't been approved, we're just going to approve them because we're going to try to get 1,400 units of affordable housing up and out so that at least people have interim housing, temporary housing, affordable housing, things like that, so that there's at least some place for these people to go. It establishes a framework to secure additional regulatory relief and resources. Instructs all city departments to report back in 1 week with a list of additional relief needed from state and federal regulations and requirements, as well as state and federal funding needed for recovery. So basically, there's now a requirement that all the major city departments, you got 1 week, you got to go out there. We need to know how much money you need from the state and federal government to fix whatever your department is responsible for. Obviously, those will be just rough numbers. It'll be kind of ballparks, things like that. However, again, at least it's something that will improve things or make things a little bit more streamlined and easier. Right now, really, kind of speed is the name of the game. We have, last I heard, 180,000 evacuees. We've lost, I don't know, so I think in Altadena, around 7,000 or 8,000 structures alone in Altadena. There is an abundant need for housing quickly, even more so than before. We thought we were in a housing crunch before. It has gone up a whole nother level now because of this. And what I think we could potentially see is I could potentially see the federal government, buying a large number of modular, manufactured, prefabbed homes, tiny homes. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing parks, convention centers, parking lots, any open spaces kind of being converted into kind of a temporary city, more or less, for some of the people that are affected. That's just something that I think, could happen, or that we could see. None of that is in the talks or anything like that. But very clearly, a very large amount of affordable housing is going to be needed immediately. So something's going to have to be done. So that's one thing that I've heard some colleagues talk about. But either way, we're going to need some housing for these people. Governor Newsom has proposed that the state provide at least $2.5 billion in additional funding for ongoing emergency response efforts and to jumpstart recovery efforts for Los Angeles. The funding will support recovery and cleanup, additional wildfire preparedness, and reopening of schools shuttered by the fires. The crazy part is $2.5 billion is a ton of money. That's a lot of money, even by today's standards. And the crazy part is that will amount to just but a drop in the bucket of what is needed for this area to recover. But at least it's an increase, which is good. Governor Gavin Newsom signed an executive order to suspend permitting and review requirements under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, which we were just talking about, and the California Coastal Act to allow victims of the recent fires to restore their homes and businesses faster. Again, kind of getting rid of these two environmental acts, the CEQA and California Coastal Act, which if this was just a one-off building, you would have to abide by those two acts depending on where you are on the coast or not. And basically they're saying, listen, if you're rebuilding from the fire, don't worry about the CEQA, don't worry about the California Coastal Act. We're not concerned about those things, which is exactly what they should be doing. Businesses, homeowners, renters, and nonprofit organizations can apply for an SBA disaster loan at that link. The California Assembly has introduced insurance legislation to protect homeowners. Assemblymember Liz Calderon, Democrat from Whittier, which, by the way, Whittier is a Los Angeles, I think it's technically in Los Angeles, is kind of a suburb of LA, so local. And Assemblymember David Alvarez, Democrat, San Diego, introduced a new bill that will assist in issuing catastrophe bonds and help finance the cost of insurance claims, increasing claims paying capacity of the FAIR Plan. I'm not going to get way too into the weeds on the FAIR Plan. Basically, the FAIR Plan is California's last resort for insurance. So if you live in a very high-risk area and your insurance has been canceled by an insurance provider, a private insurance provider, which would be something like State Farm, Farmers, Allstate, AAA, Progressive, fill in the blank. If you can't get insurance from those providers and you're a homeowner, then you can go to the state of California and say, listen, I can't get insurance from these people. I need insurance. What can you do? And the state will provide you with insurance. The downside with that is the coverage is not as much and it's very expensive. And unfortunately, a lot of people had to go to the FAIR Plan because so many policies were canceled. And so this bill that they're introducing is going to help finance some of the funds needed in the FAIR Plan to make sure that there's enough money for all that needs to be paid for. Speaker Robert Rivas announced plans to introduce AB 226 on Thursday at the state capitol during a press availability. The Fair Plan Stabilization Act, Assembly Bill 226, authorizes the Fair Access to Insurance Requirements Plan to request the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank to issue bonds if the Fair Plan faces liquidity challenge in the event of a major catastrophe such as wildfire. And some people kind of are thinking that will be the case. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google Maps. And again, I think a lot of people probably don't. I just want to show the relation of where I am, where the fires are, and why these fires are a problem for their location. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit so that you guys can get a lay of the land here. So this is LA. Here it is, beautiful LA. So we have Los Angeles right here. Los Angeles County is basically this. It's a very loose drawing, but this is basically Los Angeles County. It's a big area. Okay. I'm going to zoom into where the Eaton fire is, which is the one in Altadena. So you can see here on the map, here is Altadena. This is Pasadena. More people know Pasadena than Altadena. But Altadena is the region that's been heavily affected by the Eaton fire. So as you can see, when we go in, you're going to see why Altadena this is such a problem for them. So you can see all of this area. Okay, all of this area is open mountainous space. This is all open land. These are all canyons, ravines. You can see all the trails, all the points, waterfalls, all of this stuff. And this is all, just a ton of fuel and vegetation. It's a ton. It's one of these things where we don't ever want to see a fire break out in these foothills here, but this is where they tend to break out. This is one of the areas you're going to see this. You're going to see this ribbon of green, kind of in the middle here. And this is all prime area for forest fires. Late last year, San Bernardino had a huge fire, and that was actually in this area here. It's actually all in kind of this area. And that was a huge problem for them, and they were affected. So you can see that all along Los Angeles and San Bernardino County, we have these foothills. And you'll notice on the other side of this mountain range is the desert. Okay. This is the desert. There's not a whole lot going on out here. This is the areas of like Barstow and Lancaster. Over out east, we have Victorville and Hesperia. So this is all a lot of real desert land. So what has happened is that because we have this mountain ridge right here, everybody is packed into this area of Los Angeles and San Diego because this is where the weather's good. Once you get past this mountain range, it gets real hot and real dry. These mountain ranges keep in a lot of the moisture and the coolness from the ocean breezes and offshore flows. So what ends up happening is you have a ton of people packed in to this area that I'm circling, which encompasses Los Angeles, Orange County, and San Diego. And so we have a very, very high density. And when we zoom in, you can see the density that are in these neighborhoods. I mean, there's a lot of homes packed in here, and they're all the way up into the canyon. And these are the homes. These are the areas that were just absolutely destroyed by the wildfires. And you can see their proximity to the foothill location. And now you're probably starting to understand why insurance companies are pulling out of California. Insurance companies are pulling out of California because they're looking at this and they're going, all of this area, all of this that my cursor is on, all of this green, all of this is tinder. It's all ripe for fire. And you have a lot of homes not very far away that could catch on fire, which is exactly what happened. Again, I do want to say that during a normal wildfire, we don't have 4 fires break out at once. On Tuesday, we had 4 fires break out at one time. That stretches the firefighting resources out so much. During a normal wildfire, when a wildfire breaks out, we can get on it very quickly, right? This is normal for us. We have wildfires. We know when it's going to be dry. We know when it's going to be hot. We know when fire risk is elevated, and we can prepare our firefighters and our firefighting resources accordingly. However, when 4 fires break out almost simultaneously, and we have 60 to 80 mile an hour wind gusts, there's no way that those firefighters can tackle a fire that's moving that quickly. Reports had it that the Eaton fire was moving at a rate of 1 to 2 football fields per minute. Okay. This is why people had to abandon their cars and run. This is why people almost didn't make it out of their houses. This is why people didn't evacuate with anything, because it went from being a bad situation to being a horrible situation and an unthinkable situation in a matter of 10 to 15 minutes. Insurance companies are looking at this and they're going, we're not going to make this is not good. There's too much risk here. And there is a lot of risk. So while there is a lot of risk with normal forest fires, I do want to make it clear that this was not a typical forest fire. This was a firestorm, and it was stoked by winds and a lot of fuel. If this had been a fire that had started in Eaton Canyon and it had not been windy and we had not had other fires break out simultaneously, there's a very good chance that we're not talking about this. There's a very good chance that we don't lose any structures. There's a very good chance that fire is already out by now, because when there's no wind, we can fight fire much quicker. All of our resources can be put on that fire. And the biggest thing of all is that the wind prohibits airdrops of both fire retardant material, and also water. And those are the best ways that we fight forest fires. The air support is hugely critical. And when we don't have air support for the first 24 hours of a fire, and that fire is moving at 2 football fields per minute, that's how we have the destruction that we currently have. So I just kind of wanted to put the map up for everyone so that they could see and get an idea of what we're dealing with. And before I move on to the article that talks about insurance, I just want to show you guys how I could have been in this situation, or any other foothill community could be Altadena right now. So as we know, this is Altadena. These are all foothill communities. You're going to see this little yellow ribbon go through. This is Highway 210. This is the Foothill Freeway, very common freeway in our area. Takes us everywhere we need to go. Anything above the 210 freeway is a foothill community. And we call them foothill communities because we are at the base, we're at the foot of the hills. So as you can see, as we go through, the same thing that happened in Altadena could have happened in Sierra Madre, could have happened in Bradbury and Monrovia, could have happened in Azusa, and could have happened in, this is now over Glendora and San Dimas, and this is now over Laverne here, which is where I grew up. I mean, look at, right? This is Laverne. This is all open space. This is all forest. This is housing. In fact, can we do this? Let's see. We're going to drop our little guy right here. See if we can get a view. Yeah, so you can kind of see this. Look at this. I mean, if this was all dry, this is wonderful for a forest fire. So what happened in Altadena? You know, if the Altadena fire sparks back up in here, Laverne is wiped out. I'll show you guys where I live, and what my greatest fear now is my insurance either being canceled or going up very high, and potentially, you know, we could have been in the same situation. So I'm not going to show you exactly where I live, but I'm going to show you the street I live on. This is town. Let's see. Okay, so I live in this neighborhood right here. Right here, this kind of little sort of weird triangle looking thing. I live in this neighborhood. Okay. This is Live Oak Canyon back here. This is all open space. Okay. If that fire sparks anywhere back in here, you better believe that Claremont is in trouble. Laverne, this area is in trouble. This area of Claremont is in trouble. This development in Claremont, Clairvoy has lost houses to forest fire previously. And the situation continues as we move further and further to the east, right? All of these areas, all of these foothill communities could have been Altadena. And what does that mean? Well, it means that chances are the insurance for all those foothill communities is going to skyrocket or potentially cancel. And that is why this incident is really such a problem. Insurance companies were already very, very heavily burdened all over the United States before this. Insurance companies were even more heavily burdened in California before all of this, and now it's only going to be worse from now on. And this is why the title of the stream is you know, this is how LA wildfires are going to affect you, because we think that the LA wildfires are only going to affect Altadena or Pacific Palisades, which this is the area that burned over here. You can tell, I mean, just insane amounts of vegetation, more vegetation than anything else. I mean, you can imagine, I mean, look at these people in the Summit community. They're in a bowl of tinder. I mean, they're in a firebox. And unfortunately, I can't imagine that this community is still standing. I know that a lot of the fire that was affected was, you know, in this area here, Pacific Palisades, and then went right along the coast, all the way up to Malibu here. You know, we think, oh, the LA fires are going to be a problem for Altadena, Pasadena, and Malibu and Pacific Palisades. And man, it sucks for those people, but man, at least it's not going to affect me. You're wrong. And the reason that you're wrong is because insurance companies, the people that did have insurance policies, well, guess what? When insurance has to pay out, they raise premiums on all their customers, on everyone, all over the country, right? And so the same thing happens when there's a hurricane in Florida, or a winter storm. Oh, that's okay, Michelle. I had the map up. Oh, I realized you can't see that. That's okay. But when there's a winter storm in Texas or a tornado or a hurricane on the East Coast that causes significant damage, people here in California, our premiums go up for it, right? Insurance companies don't just raise the premiums in the area that's affected. They raise premiums for all of their customers. That's how they recoup the money that they paid out. So that's why it's going to be a problem for the rest of homeowners, because it's not just these areas they're going to have to deal with it. It's going to be anybody that owns a home, anybody that has homeowners insurance is likely going to see an increase in their premiums. And that's, one of the big side effects of this problem. So let's go over to an article where it kind of talks about this a little bit. Here we go. All right. So as climate risks mount, homeowners far beyond California face soaring insurance bills, and you can just see some of the devastation. I mean, it's crazy to think about. It's still hard to watch all that stuff. Okay, make this a little bit bigger, a little bit. There we go. Okay, as disasters linked to climate change become more frequent in the U.S., homeowners across the country are paying the price through skyrocketing insurance costs, and not only in states like Florida and California that are considered most vulnerable to global warming. The Los Angeles wildfires, which have decimated neighborhoods such as Pacific Palisades and Altadena, are focusing attention on a mounting insurance crisis that is particularly acute in states at greatest risk of wildfires, such as California, Colorado, Texas, and Oregon. But the problem is reaching into almost every region of the US, including the Midwest, the Northeast, and the mountain states, according to the analysis of insurance data. Gotta get some of this stuff off the screen. There we go. Research shows the climate change is heightening the conditions that lead to fire-conducive weather, including drying out vegetation and constraining water supplies. Such conditions are in turn prolonging wildfire season, as well magnifying the size and intensity of the blazes. Serious pocketbook issue. The average homeowner's insurance premium jumped 33% from 2020 to 2023, rising from $1,902 per year to $2,530 per year, according to 2024 research from economists at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School and the University of Wisconsin. By comparison, inflation rose about 18% during that period. So I guess realistically, what you could say is well, insurance costs didn't go up 33%. Inflation went up 18%. And then insurance costs went up the difference, what is that? Another 12% or something like that. So, but still, at the end of the day, it's costing people more money. And that's really all that matters. Such costs have surged even more in parts of the US, prone to the kind of natural disasters that experts link to climate change. Homeowners in these states have seen their insurance premiums soar by about 50% over that 3-year period, according to Benjamin Keyes, a professor of real estate and finance at Wharton and co-author of the 2024 study. Yet even property owners in states considered less vulnerable to climate disasters are now grappling with increased insurance costs and dropped policies, issues that threaten to undermine property values. And absolutely, because if you can't get insurance on a home, then it's going to make people be more wary about buying it. The less people that want to buy your home, the less valuable it becomes. If you can't get insurance at all, then it's going to make it very hard to sell it to someone that needs a loan. Most buyers need a loan, and that loan's going to require hazard insurance. So you can see that if insurance gets really, really expensive or is non-existent in some regions, it's really going to put the strain on some of those property values, or at least it potentially could. We're seeing it now for 5 years in a row, the increases in insurance costs, and they are correlated with increased severity of climate events. Jeremy Porter, head of climate implications research at First Street, a nonprofit research firm that models climate risks, told CBS Money Watch. One thing that is surprising is that Kansas and Nebraska and these places in the middle of the country are also seeing these huge increases in insurance. While the average U.S. homeowner's insurance cost is now about $2,300 per year, Nebraskans pay an average of $5,700, while Oklahomans are shelling out about $4,800 annually, not far from Florida's $5,500 average annual rate, bank rate data shows. In fact, one of the crazy things is Nebraska has the highest insurance of any state in the nation. Florida is second, California is third, but for some reason, Nebraska. If David Matney was here from Omaha, Nebraska, he could tell us. But last time I talked with him, David's a friend of mine and a real estate agent out in Nebraska, and he said it has a lot to do with hail and hail damage, which I guess makes sense. Insurers are responding to the increasing frequency and intensity of wildfires, hurricanes, and flooding by hiking premiums to recoup their payouts. Researchers have found in 2000, homeowners' insurance costs represented about 7.5% of the typical mortgage. That figure has soared to 22% as of 2023, according to First Street's research, which is insane. And now it is not uncommon for people that have lived in their home for about more than 5 or 6 years to actually pay more in insurance and taxes than in the principal and interest of the home, which is pretty outrageous. This is a serious pocketbook issue, said Wharton's Keys in January 10 webcast to discuss the Los Angeles wildfires and insurance about the rise in policy premiums. That is the kind of thing that gets you around the kitchen table and say, do we need to move? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, obviously an increase in insurance is going to affect what you spend, but is it really cheaper to move out of state or relocate than to pay an extra $400 a year in insurance? That I don't know, but I think his idea is correct. I do think that this event is going to stir up some conversations for people about where they really need to live or where they want to live or where they should live. I don't necessarily know if it's going to cause people to go, oh my God, there was fires and insurance is going to get expensive. Do we need to move? I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think this whole ordeal and scenario might kick up the conversation for some people. Dropped policies from coast to coast. In some cases, homeowners aren't only facing higher insurance costs, but also difficulties in even securing coverage. Non-renewal rates have climbed sharply in California and Florida, where the so-called insurer of last resort, the state's fair access to insurance requirements, or FAIR plans, which is what I was talking about earlier, has seen a jump in enrollment. Thousands of homeowners in Los Angeles were dropped by their insurers last year, just months before the wildfires hit. And the California FAIR plan used to really only be an insurance policy when, like, if I sold a house in the mountains, right? Like if I sold a cabin in the mountains up in Mount Baldy, which is the mountain town that's just about 30 minutes away from me up the hill. If I sold a cabin or a house in Mount Baldy, chances are we were going to have the California FAIR plan because of the fire risk, right? Now we are seeing homes in fairly normal communities have to get that California FAIR plan. Now, granted, these homes in these communities are like the homes in Altadena or Pacific Palisades, where they are very close to the foothills. There's not much between them and the foothills. That obviously they would need to go for the FAIR plan. But the fact that we're seeing such an increase in FAIR plan participants is very clearly a sign that major insurance companies simply aren't renewing and they're not giving out coverage to more and more people. It's the fire hazard. It's a fire danger, you know? We're in an area that couldn't provide insurance to any longer. Jeff Cohen, whose Altadena, California home was burned in this month's fires, told CBS News about being dropped by his insurer prior to the disaster. He and his wife eventually found pricier coverage to the state's FAIR plan. So luckily, Mr. Cohen and his wife were able to get on the FAIR plan, so they're going to have some coverage, but who knows if it'll be enough, and who knows if it'll run out. Where insurers are dropping homeowners due to climate risk, and there you can see. So Florida is like, a whole nother 2.99%. So, you can kind of see it's kind of the states that you'd figure, right? Hurricane prone, very hurricane prone, little hurricane prone, nor'easter prone. So they get some, Massachusetts in this area can get some pretty nasty winter storms coming off the ocean. And then of course, California, which this is mostly almost exclusively because of wildfire. But it's not only homeowners in states like California, Florida, and Louisiana who are getting dropped by their insurers. According to, let me put the article back on the screen for you guys. According to the Senate Budget Committee report published last month, while most of the top 10 states for non-renewals by insurers were either coastal states or those prone to wildfire, Oklahoma also ranked high, likely due to increasing winds and hail from severe convective storms, the report found. So again, it's not just a coastal issue. It's going to affect properties and homeowners all across the nation, even in the Great Plains states, where you think, oh man, geez, there's not that big of a risk. The next 15 states with rates of home coverage non-renewal include Midwestern states such as Nebraska and Ohio, as well as mountain states, including South Dakota and Montana. The analysis found while non-renewal rates have more than tripled in Florida between 2018 and I'm assuming that's supposed to be 2023 and not 203, Oklahoma isn't far behind, with the rate of drop policies nearly doubling over that time, the data shows. With more volatile atmosphere, there is more latent energy in the climate, and we end up with more intense thunderstorms that produce heavy precipitation. First Streets Porter noted. They are tied back to climate change and the fact that their air temperatures are warmer and the sea is warmer, winds are impacted in a way that's more volatile. Heavy rains in Vermont that led to damaging flooding in July of 2024, as well as Hurricane Helene's devastation in parts of North Carolina last year, are all illustrative of these more damaging weather events, Porter noted. Notably, the data make clear that insurance non-renewals are not only a problem for communities typically seen as being on the front lines of climate change. The Senate report said Florida, California, and Louisiana have been seen as the canaries in the coal mine. The researchers added places such as southern New England, parts of Montana, New Mexico, coastal and inland North Carolina, and South Carolina, among others, are not far behind. And this is exactly why I wanted to have the stream on this topic about how the LA wildfires are going to affect you. Whether or not you live in LA or not, it's going to affect you. And the future events in the nation that have to do with climate are going to affect you. So gone are the days of, oh, gee, Florida got a storm. Oh, I hope they're okay, but not my problem. Or, oh gosh, there's a fire in California. I hope those people are okay, but it's not my problem. Those days are gone. And we are now going to bear all of us collectively are going to bear the financial burden of these climate-related disasters. Property values at risk. Most Americans in the U.S. who own a home also have property insurance because such coverage is required by mortgage lenders, which we talked about, which mandate the policies to secure their investments against damage from theft or accidents like storms or falling trees. But as climate-related disasters proliferate, insurers are readjusting their risk models and boosting premiums to cover their need for increased capital reserves, as well as to buy more reinsurance. Basically, insurance provided to insurers by other carriers, according to Brookings Institution. So that's kind of interesting, right? So insurance companies have this thing called reinsurance. So these insurance companies have insurance, which is kind of interesting. And then I wonder, well, is there reinsurance? Like, where does it stop? Who stops insuring what? But obviously, that's something that they're going to have to figure out as well. As wildfires, hurricanes, and other weather events become more intense due to human-caused climate change, it's likely that insurance access and affordability will also worsen, the Senate report predicted. In some extreme examples, property values could plummet if those areas become uninsurable, an issue that's already hit some communities vulnerable to wildfires and other weather disasters. U.S. homeowners burdened by heavy insurance costs are unlikely to see any relief anytime soon, according to experts. Now, I will say that I think that the idea that these homes are we're going to see a huge drop in property value. I don't know about that. Like I said, there's still a lot of people that want to live in California, regardless of whatever risks may or may not be present. And quite honestly, a lot of California is not in wildfire risk area, but some of it is. I just think that probably there's enough demand to probably absorb whatever happens. I still think people are going to continue to want to live in California. I still think people are going to want to continue to move here. And I think it's, quite honestly, it's just way, way, way too early to have any type of actual idea of what's going to happen with the rebuilding, property values, insurance. We just know that there's going to be a lot. It's going to be expensive and it's going to take a long time. And I think it's just too early to try to anticipate, what's going to happen and how, it's going to happen. So guys, I do have another, article here that's talking about some of the things that Gavin Newsom is going to do. We already kind of covered that in the previous article. There is a news coverage that I think we're gonna watch. So I'm gonna share this, make this full screen, do this, share this tab instead. All right, so this is from KCAL. This is a local news outlet. And let's see what they have to say about the fire. This is not live, by the way. They're all pre-recorded.
Los Angeles.
I thought I was going to die.
Right now at 6, panic and persistence. A woman thought she was going to die trying to escape the Palisades fire until a firefighter stepped up and saved her life. Red flag fire warnings expiring this hour. That's welcome.
So this is a really great illustration for people that are not familiar with Santa Anas or the winds that we can get in Southern California from Santa Anas, which has to do with a high pressure system moving behind a low pressure system, and it speeds up the air, comes down the mountains. It's a whole thing. This is a really, really good representation of Santa Ana winds, right? So this is a palm tree all over California, and this thing is just getting absolutely beat by the wind. Now imagine that this palm tree was on fire. Imagine what would be happening. That's how you have the level of devastation that we've had.
It is now up to 45% on the Eaton fire. The acreage hasn't changed. It's just over 14,000 acres burned. More than 140 homes remain red tagged. Over the next 24 hours, teams will transition over to the Palisades fire and help with resident searches. Now, the Palisades fire is now 19% contained, and fire.
I mean, just look at that. This is all. I mean, there's a couple houses standing here, all burned. I mean, it's almost incomprehensible.
And there's more positive change on the way. Here's meteorologist Danny Roberti with what to expect in her next weather.
That's exactly right, Pat. And finally, we are going to see, we're on the tail end of this. Finally, we're going to get a break from some of these intense winds. I mean, this is day 9 of really windy offshore conditions. And now. And
so like these the winds here, like this is a problem. Like, so I'm in this area, this is Claremont, right? And we get talked about on the wind news because there's a pass right here. You can see this this freeway goes through it. This pass acts as a funnel and it speeds up the wind that comes through here. And it gets funneled down and goes through this area right here. It kind of fans out. And that's why we had some pretty significant winds earlier this week. In 2022, in January of 2022, about 3 years ago, we had a huge windstorm that took down trees left and right. And that's the same thing that happens over here as well, and in this area too. So these are the winds that are the problem. This is not bad right now. These numbers were getting in the 40s, 50s, and 60s when these fires were happening, and that was one of the big problems about it. So it looks like this is live. This live feed. So the story that I was going to show you guys is already come and gone. So we don't need to worry about that. So guys, I just appreciate you guys being here. I know the stream was kind of weird. Again, I'm a little scatterbrained, a little all over the place, and I didn't want to talk about the fires, but I felt like there were some things that we needed to cover, especially, being a native from Los Angeles. I went to Pasadena City College actually for a year. I still have family that lives in the area, in the Temple City, Arcadia area, which is just barely south of Pasadena. My wife works in Pasadena and Altadena. So it's, obviously it's been a lot for us. So I appreciate you guys hanging out in the stream tonight. I know it wasn't the most fun stream that we've ever had. I know it's not the longest stream that we've ever had, but I just appreciate you guys being here. If you have any questions about any of the fire related stuff, any of the insurance related stuff, you can drop it in the comments. Even if you're watching on the replay, I'll take a look at it. So with that being said, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your week. Please keep in mind the people that have been affected by the fires. If you are trying to help and you want to donate, you want to make a difference, but you don't know what to do, please let me know. Drop a comment. You can email me. You can DM me. I will make sure that you're able to donate whatever you need to donate, whether that's cash or clothing or diapers or whatever. Next week, hopefully, we'll have a little bit better topic. Maybe it'll be a little bit lighter. Maybe I'll even do another overpriced turkey segment because that's a little bit lighter and a little bit more fun. Guys, everybody have a good week. Take care, everyone. Like I said, try to have a little bit lighter show for you guys next week. As always, thanks so much for hanging out. I appreciate you giving up some of your valuable time. Please do me a favor, hit the like on the stream before you leave. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your week. I'll see you next Wednesday.